Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Jim Scanlon. I'm the superintendent in the school district. Thanks again for coming out and giving us some feedback on solving this very difficult problem and challenge that we have, and how we're going to bring our kids back to school safely. The guidelines continue to change, and I'll give you an update on some of that. What we've heard earlier this afternoon with the governor's press conference. We are recording the session tonight, so for anybody who's not able to make it, you can pass the word that this will be up on the website for people to go back and listen to the information. I'll spend about 10 or 15 minutes just going through some of the updates that I'm aware of, and then we'll go into an hour breakout session to talk about hybrid schedules tonight. If we are in fact going to come back with a different model than bringing everybody back into school. This is our final formal meeting with our parents. I know that our staff groups will continue as our implementation teams. So one of the things tonight, if there's anything else that we need to consider, and there are hundreds of things that we need to consider in terms of how we're going to open schools. Please make sure we capture that tonight in our breakout sessions, and we'll put those in our notes, and we'll address those the questions to the best that we can. I know some people are putting some questions in the chat as I speak, and once we go to the breakouts, we'll come back and I'll try to answer as many questions, if there are some in the chat, as I can. Again, rules for engagement. We'll go over that for tonight, and just to remind everybody, we want to make sure we be respectful of everybody's comments. We want to allow airtime for everybody. We want to hear from as many people as possible in our breakout sessions. Stay focused, and something that we're all becoming again very used to: expect non-closure, because every time a new set of guidelines or a new directive comes out, we all kind of turn our heads and have to shift gears in a different direction. Just a review of the problem that we have. Again, lots of different guidance that's out there. We get some local departments of health giving some guidance that's different, so we're trying to tease through all of that. The 6 feet of social distancing, we did talk about that 2 weeks ago. If in fact that becomes a new order, and we're hearing word that the Secretary of Health may in fact give some new directives at the end of this week for schools about mandating 6 feet of social distancing, which we will not be able to bring all of our kids in if that happens. We have to go to a split schedule, which we'll talk about tonight. And again, the ultimate goal for us is to do all we can to open schools safely for our students and our staff. These are some of the overarching questions for our subcommittees tonight. Athletics group met at 5:30. PIA guidelines, I'll update this group. We've been waiting for information from the Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic Association about whether they're going to run sports in the fall. They sent out something actually as we were in our meeting that they still do intend to run fall sports unless they are told otherwise by the governor's office or somebody out of the State Department in Harrisburg. So they are still planning to do that. Many of the NCAA leagues are canceling. Ivy League canceled, Patriot League canceled, the PSAC League, which is all the state schools in Pennsylvania, they've canceled their entire fall sports activities. So we will watch PIAA. Transportation, again, what are some factors if we're going to this hybrid schedule, this AB schedule? I'll show a couple models of that here in a second. And for our parent committees, what are some of the things we need to consider with the various models for a hybrid schedule where we bring half the kids in and we would remote learn half the kids in and then switch every other day, every other week, or on a 2-day about schedule. So why are some of these guidelines changing? At 3:30 this afternoon, the governor had a press conference and announced some new guidance for primarily for restaurants, going from 50% capacity to a 25% capacity, whether you can order drinks or you've got to order food. I mean, so there's some pieces there. He also, in that order, said that there can be no places in the public where large groups can gather inside larger than 25. So that has some concerns with some of our operations right now. In fact, we were planning to have a school board meeting on the 27th. That was going to have people attend that, but with a cap of 25, we may have to make that virtual now at this point. So there is some impact with that. The Pennsylvania Department of Health is expected to release some more guidelines for school districts by the end of this week. We are anticipating, as I said earlier, that this may be some more stricter social distancing guidance, and but we'll see what those guidelines are by the end of the week. Hopefully, by the end of the week. The quarantine that was issued last week by the governor's office, we're looking at 18 states. At one point, it was 19 states. Delaware was removed from that just, I guess, 2 days ago. That had concerns for us. We have staff living in Delaware. When we open up school, we have buses going to schools in Delaware. So all of those recommendations, while they are done for all the safety reasons, they do have an impact on how we're going to operate our schools, our school systems, and any of the businesses in Pennsylvania as well. We're seeing a lot of the COVID-19 rates are rising in many of the states, and everybody thought that the summer was going to be a time when this would all calm down. What we knew about viruses was that it doesn't. You don't tend to have too much flu in the summer, but that's not been the case. And in fact, Pennsylvania had I think 900 new cases yesterday, or 950 new cases yesterday. That's the highest that the state has had since April. And again, a lot of different interpretations of guidance. Again, different counties are giving different guidance, and the superintendents are trying to get some coordination with the Secretary of Health to get some very consistent guidance, so that we can focus on whatever the plan is with whatever the guidance is, because we are trying to plan for multiple scenarios, and we just don't have the capacity to do all of that and to do it all very well. Because some of these changing guidelines are taking place, we are going to make some adjustments to our schedule. Originally, I was going to do a public presentation on July 21st, which would be next week. I don't believe we're going to be ready because I'm not so sure what Friday is going to bring with some new direction from the governor's office or from the Department of Health. So we're going to move that to July 29th. We were going to originally have a July 27th board meeting to approve our opening of schools plan. We're going to move that back a week to August 3rd. And then whatever that decisions by the board, whatever that plan will be, we'll get that out and inform parents the following day or that night of the board meeting. So the question about hybrid schedules, if I can take a minute to just talk about that. Basically, you bring 50% of the students in. This is how we can do social distancing of 6 feet, where instead of having 20 or 24 kids in a class, you'd have 10 to 12 or 13 in a class. The other half would stay home and access these courses remotely. In fact, we are doing a trial tomorrow with an elementary classroom, a middle school classroom, and a high school classroom. So I don't know if any parents on this have helped volunteer their children for this pilot that we're going to run. But we'll have the kids in class wearing masks in class 6 feet apart, and then we'll have half the class at home will be accessing a Zoom link and watching via cameras into the classroom. So it is a synchronous schedule if you're at home, and it's a live schedule if you are in that classroom. So we want to do a high school, middle school, and elementary school and get some feedback on how that works. We're also testing the bandwidth and the network capacity for that if we're going to be having open Zoom links all day long across this district in the fall. We believe we can manage that, but we will be doing some network testing as we're pinging on that tomorrow as well. Right now, we would recommend, if we do a hybrid schedule, an A-B schedule, that the A schedule, students with letters A through L. The B students schedule would be M through Z. We're not wed to that. Someone had suggested prior to earlier today, someone suggested that maybe we want to look at neighborhoods. It's the way we used to set up our kindergarten classrooms when we were half-day kindergarten. bringing kids AM and PM. We set it up by neighborhoods, and that actually helps some parents with carpooling and things like that. So that may be something we want to talk about. But as of right now, we're just trying to cut it in half, A to L, M to Z. Doesn't always work that way with the letters of the alphabet, but we got to have a starting point as to how we would do that. Some advantages of a hybrid, again, it gives us that 6 feet of social distancing, and if in fact that is going to be the mandate, we need to prepare for that. It does limit the number of kids on school buses. Again, the current guidelines that we have now, this may change on Friday. Current guidelines, we're allowed 2 to a seat with kids as long as they're wearing masks. We did some measurements on that. That's not 3 feet, that's not 6 feet, that's 14 inches apart on those seats. It does give the students some opportunities for some socialization, albeit not every day. So they can meet in small groups every other day or every 2 days or every other week, depending on the model. And they can, again, the kids that are not in the classroom for those times can have contact via Zoom link. It does give our counselors and therapists time to check in with students. It's a little bit of a scheduling concern for them, but when they know if the kids are going to be on certain days of the week, they can schedule some of their follow-up and touch points with kids at that point. And it will help us with cafeteria, use of library, art, music, some of those bigger rooms that we had some concerns as to how we'd run them. It would now lower the class sizes in those rooms. So those are some advantages. The Department of Ed put out some guidance and some suggestions early this morning. So let me just share with you some of the things that they put in here. This is a sample weekly schedule of a hybrid group where it's 2 days on, 2 days off. So Group A would come in on Monday and Tuesday. Group B would be remote learning. This particular one is offered for some school districts that don't have the ability to do the disinfecting every night. So they would put a remote learning schedule for both groups on a day, and that would give the schools time to do the disinfecting. Now for us, I will tell you that our cleaning plan includes disinfecting every night in our schools and going through all touch points 3 times per day. We do have the staff, particularly if there is going to be no after-school activities. We would be able to transfer some of our evening staff into the day to keep up with some of that. So we are not in that category. So we could do 2 days in, 2 days 2 days out, and just keep rotating that as a hybrid schedule for Westchester. Another one would be a every other day. So Group A is in on Monday. Group B is logging in remotely. And then they would flip on Tuesday, flip on Wednesday. It would be every other day and just keep rotating through that throughout the year. Another example is a weekly turnabout. So Group A is in for an entire week for all 5 days. Group B would be remote learning. They'd be logging in via their Zoom links. And then the following week they would flip where Group B would be in and Group A would be doing the remote learning. So those are a couple of examples that the Department of Ed put out this morning, which again leads me to believe with the Department of Health going to make some announcements, PDE is putting out these kinds of schedules. My tea leaves tell me that we're going to get a 6 feet mandatory social distancing. So we need to take a look at what that might look like and what are all of those conditions that we need to address. Certainly there are disadvantages to any of the things that we're doing. Obviously it's not everybody in. The question about daycare and for families and for our staff, how do we address some of that? The connectivity piece for all students, I know that was something we worked very hard last spring with our remote learning 1.0 to make sure that everybody has access if they're going to be home. So we're prepared to go out and be sure that we can get access for all the families that may not have internet access. Some questions that the staff members say it might be a little bit slower pace of instruction when you're doing this flip model and this every other day or every other week model, and we'll be able to keep up the pace, especially with some of the advanced placement courses. We don't eliminate the entire health risk. I mean, we still have people in the schools. I think we do mitigate it more with 6 feet of social distancing than we do with 3 feet, but it is not completely eliminated. The cameras that are on the laptops, teachers have to make sure they're positioned so they can, they have good visuals and good voice modulation into the microphones. And then the special education students, we've got to make sure that we have some consistency. If they're going to be AB on and off, are we going to be able to deliver those instructional programs for those students while they're home? Some suggestions we've heard from some of the staff is perhaps with some of the smaller class special ed children that we may be able to bring them in every day. We might be able to mitigate that for some of the students there. But that's something we have to take a closer look at as we schedule. Remote learning 2.0. This is something that our staff was looking at. If we in fact are ordered in a shutdown, that's a different schedule. We want to make some upgrades to what we did last spring. We want to have a combination of synchronous and asynchronous. I know the parents wanted to see more synchronous learning, so we have built that into the schedule. But there also is a need for flexibility. So there's some asynchronous with discussion boards, videos by the teachers. So our teachers are teasing that out and working through that. That's different than our cyber program. And we've been running open houses this week. The cyber program does require some parent help at home, just as it would in a cyber charter school. And this is something that is an option for parents if you just want to enroll your children in a cyber program. It's very flexible. There's a lot of asynchronous learning in there with some synchronous times for checking in with the kids' progress. So remote learning schedule and the cyber program schedule are very different. We want to make sure that we're clear about that. So our questions as we look at for tonight, as we look at those AB hybrid schedules, every other day, 2 days on, 2 days off, or every other week, what are some of the factors we need to consider with that from the parent perspective? Are there any possible solutions? We did list some of the concerns that we started to look at with regard to those schedules, and we really want to try to tease that out tonight. Again, our staff groups earlier were looking at some of the synchronous versus asynchronous on their other 2.0 schedules. But for tonight, we want to make sure that we're looking at this hybrid AB schedule and a couple of different models. So before we send you into those breakout sessions, just to let you know what our next steps will be. There's some questions in the chat as I'm speaking here. We'll try to address them when we come back from the breakouts. I'll try to get through as many of those as we possibly can. Our facilitators will take notes tonight. Each committee will come back and we'll hear a brief breakout, brief report back from the breakout sessions. But we'll post the notes up on our website for anybody who's not able to be here, or if we miss something, please let us know. We are continuing to work on this plan, and again, as we get different guidance every week and every day, we are doing the best we can to keep our parents and our staff and our community informed as we get closer to the start of this school year. Philadelphia School District announced their plans today. They are going to open up with a hybrid model where they're going to be 2 days on and 2 days off, with everybody doing a remote learning day sometime during the week. So basically, it's 2 days in and 3 days remote learning for all the students in Philadelphia School District. So we'll need to inform our parents of our final plans. I think August 4th is going to be probably our drop dead time on this. Of course, if we get ordered closed, we have to go a completely different direction with remote learning. But that all remains to be seen, and that is in the hands of the governor right now. Again, new timeline, because of some of these regulations, we'll do a preliminary plan out to the community on July 29th, and then our board will vote on August 3rd, just as some of the follow-up. So with that, I will turn it over to Chris Cromwell. And Chris, if you can get people to the breakouts, we'll see everybody back here in about an hour.
Here's Glen. We're back to 171 participants.
Okay, we will we'll try to keep it rolling. I'd like to start by let's go through the groups and do a brief summary. And if there's additional questions that come up, we did go through some of the questions that were in the main chat. I will go through those to close us out. I think I have answers for most of them. Some I will find answers from those as well. And I'll say this to all of our groups: thank you so much for all the input that you're giving us in the questions. As we're generating this big long list of questions, we'll get as many answered and put them up on our website. So I was in one of the elementary breakouts about rumors on Facebook or social media. Go to our website. If you hear a rumor, if you don't see whatever's said up there, then it's probably not true, and it's just a rumor. So try to help us maintain all the rumors, because this stuff changes by the day. Let's start with the high school group. And what was some of the feedback from coming out of the high school group on those various schedules for a hybrid model?
Hey, Jim, this is Kevin Fagan.
All right, Kevin, thanks.
So a lot of great feedback tonight. And as usual, we will make sure we share those notes with you tomorrow so we can post them up. I'm not going to go through all those items tonight. I'll just hit on some of the high notes and begin by thanking that group for giving us their time tonight and then all their insights. The general feeling from the parent group was that, none of us wants to be here. This wasn't what we were planning for. Didn't think we'd be talking about a hybrid schedule tonight, but we're glad that there's a possibility that kids will be back in school at least part-time and seeing friends and seeing teachers and trying to be optimistic about that. So that's a great starting point, I think. There was discussion about, which type of schedule would be best. There was some informal polling that was happening with mom and dad at home with the kids. And there was some feedback that 2 days consecutively was better. And then there was some feedback that every other day was superior. So there was a recommendation that at some point we get insight from the kids, specifically at the high school level, about which type of schedule they would prefer when we get to that point. Obviously, there are concerns about, running classes specific to special ed populations and other students who need additional supports and exactly what that will look like. There was feedback about whether activities and after-school sports would be able to continue, specifically if we're in the green phase, and how we would help to ensure that those things go, given that kids are already losing out on a lot of time that they'd be socializing with peers and really looking to maintain as many opportunities as we could. Parents are very supportive. We all understand we're going to have to work as a unit on this, and that even if we are back in a hybrid type schedule, we're still going to need to follow safety protocols, wearing masks, keeping our distance from one another, and just working together as school and home. So in a nutshell, that was, really the crux of the conversation. But like I said, I'll share the specific notes with you so we can post them.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. How about high school group 2? There was a second group 2?
Jim, Chris Lenardi here.
Hey, Chris.
Kevin really encapsulated most of the feedback that we had. The only pieces I would add, we did have some strong consensus that the week on, week off would be really, really challenging for students and families. For students in particular, not seeing either version of learning for an entire week, we thought would be particularly challenging. We were pretty much split down the middle in terms of the ABAB or the AABB models. We were pretty split evenly on that. Definitely concerns and just questions around maintaining consistency and progress through the curriculum with the missed face-to-face time. And given that we still have questions around what would that synchronous piece look like, obviously our folks are working to figure that out. How effective would that synchronous piece be for the students that are not in front of the teacher, and how effective can the teacher be for both cohorts of kids, the in-person and the virtual version? So that's definitely a concern. And then we did have a lot of discussion around just trying to differentiate between the remote version of learning, whether it be for everyone or for the AB groups, versus the cyber options that families have, trying to help articulate that for everyone. That was definitely a major talking point. but Kevin hit really nicely everything that our group was discussing.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Chris. And that was one of the questions early on in the chat. We'll talk about that in a minute, the difference between our remote learning and our cyber option for all, all the different levels. Consistency is important, and that's why as we're looking at schedules and working with our teacher groups, and a lot of our professional development this summer is designed around that so that we get more consistency with all of our teachers. The other piece that we have to do with our staff, so far between leaves and retirements, we have 67 new teachers that are starting this year. So we have 67 who didn't go through any of this in the spring, and we've got to get them quickly up to speed. We do have a week in August with our new teachers, and of course, a lot of the focus will be helping them get acclimated to this new reality. So yeah, consistency is a great theme. How about the Pupil Services group?
Hi, Dr. Scanlon. To follow up with what you just said, consistency was really what we were talking about for the most part, not only from an instructional lens, but also just from a childcare lens and being able to support our students when they're exposed to some of that synchronous learning that we're looking forward to hearing more about. And I think that was really where our group wanted to hear more about how the pilots are going and looking to see how that looks from a pupil service lens as well. One of the other neighboring districts brought up something about having special ed students and EL students on a day-to-day basis in their model, looking at some of these different plans. So that was definitely something we would like to see considered and vetted out.
Yeah, that bringing all the particularly the high-risk special needs children in, that came up in the teacher groups earlier today too. How about Pupil Services too? Carol, did you have that one?
Yes, I did. Great group of parents, similar kind of concerns as Steve's group did. They had with childcare being primary. Also, the last example C, with week on, week off, really not good for special needs children. The same solution, bringing in those high at risk kids that need that daily support in more often, which was brought up. But they came up with a fourth option. And what that fourth option was briefly is where they have Group A comes in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all month. Group B, Thursday, Friday, all month. And then it switches the next month. What that does is it provides consistency. It provides childcare needs met, so they know in advance, okay, I need a babysitter Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday every day of that month. And it gives more face time than example A for kids. So a lot of great ideas. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Carol. Yeah, that's an interesting option, month to month. We could tease that out and take a look at that.
Yeah.
Okay, how about the middle school group? Judy?
I'll go. So we had a great group of parents tonight, and we want to thank them just for being a part of our group. The big thing that came up was definitely consistency. They felt that A was more easier for childcare and carpooling if schedule is consistent. They love the idea of, if it was alphabetical, then families would be together. The only thing that came out as a concern was the days in high school, elementary, and middle. I think high school is 5, middle school is 6, and elementary was 4. And so there were some concerns as to how we were going to bring that together. When we talk about synchronous learning and the students who are on and off, parents were concerned that they were going to be Zooming all day. And how was that going to impact them? B, they felt was more engaging with more instruction time. One of the things that kept coming up with each one of the A, B's, and C's was cleaning time. How much time did we have in between the two groups to clean? I think C did not give a lot of room for cleaning. They felt that the one that you were in for 2 days, free on Wednesday, and then for another 2 days, allowed for deep cleaning in the middle of both groups coming in. one big thing, Dr. Scanlon, that they asked about is, are we going to continue these conversations based on where we are today and the fact that we still don't have closure, which you talked about accepting non-closure, but are we going to continue these parent meetings? So.
Yeah, I would have everybody in the on deck circle, if that's okay. We have some things we've got to do next week to tease out some implementation pieces with our staff. But as we get into the final phases of this, if everybody is willing to step in, if I need to call a meeting, I'd be happy to do that and get some additional information. Guidelines change every day, and I just want to make sure we have enough in the arsenal whenever we get the final guidelines that we can attack it and get it done. And if I need to, schedule another meeting with this group, I would like to keep you on the on deck circle and keep those listservs alive and active. Sean, how about middle school 2?
Yeah, good evening. Another great discussion with our group tonight. Sounds like the theme I'm hearing so far, our group agrees that the example C is the least preferred model, just out of school too long for students out of being out, of the actual classroom. So that was the least preferred for sure. A and B, we kind of went back and forth on. We talked about it, and I talked about it from a scheduling standpoint. If we continue with the 6-day cycle at the middle school level, B is more seamless for teachers being able to engage with their students in person through every week. So we probably lean towards B. Some really good questions that came out of it and some considerations as far as, are there going to potentially be exemptions for families who none of the models work for, and I know that we had talked about some different situations before, so that came up as well. And if so, could there potentially be rooms? Is there space? Do we have any space for maybe students that are home on remote learning and this childcare issues doesn't work for them or whatever it might be? Even if it's their remote learning day, would we be able to make it so that there might be other spaces where we can still keep students socially distanced and they actually do their remote learning on campus? Is that a possibility? Some other models, questions that were brought up about it potentially splitting each day, half in the morning, half in the afternoon. Somebody else talked about, could we maybe do 4 days of synchronous learning and 1 day off where, it's kind of like independent work, might, alleviate some other issues that families are running into, or maybe holidays, different things like that. So could there be maybe 1 day of independent work or catch-up day built in within the schedule? Like I said, lots of good ideas that were here that I'm going to send them along. The last one I'll just mention here is are there going to be another survey? Is there going to be another survey potentially sent out, maybe to some way to catalog parent concern, like for transportation or childcare, so that we have an idea of which parents within our schools have those, different issues. But I will be sending that all along to you.
Okay. And we probably will be sending another survey out. I'm not sure how I'll structure that yet, but probably we will do that as we look at some of the options to open up. The schedules, the 180 days, 900 hours, 990 at secondary, that still has to be in there. That is not being waived by Harrisburg. So even in that remote day that's in there, that is a learning day, online day for the kids. And that was put in there for some of the schools that need time to do disinfecting. As I said, we'll be doing nightly disinfecting of our buildings. So we don't necessarily need the time. Some other districts might need that time. And that's easy to say and set it up that way. It's a little harder to schedule because teachers then have to be responsible for an entire remote day in addition to the day-to-day. So there's some issues with that we'd have to work through. How about elementary school? Nora, you want to start?
Sure. So much like the other level groups, no unanimous decision on the schedule they like better. Certainly some are easier for scheduling for parents in terms of creating their schedule, but they understand that there are also downsides to all of them. There were some questions about how rooms would be cleaned and with what and when we would make that type of information public to the parents so that they would know just what that process is going to be, as well as what is the process should there be a case of COVID-19, whether it be a student or staff member, what would be that process that we would have in terms of closure and cleaning and making that visible to parents sooner rather than later. And then in terms of the actual schedule of what a day might look like, there's a lot of curiosity about that, especially for parents that had multiple children, and how they would be able to work that into reality if they have multiple kids at different grade levels. And then in terms of actual functionality, while we might be giving them iPads, if you have multiple kids, do you have the Wi-Fi and the bandwidth to be able to support that? And, as well as giving parents some ideas about how to prepare themselves and their house for the possibility that multiple students might be at home doing remote learning during the day. We certainly had a bunch of discussion about the neighborhood cohort model with not, again, unanimous, but many people favoring the idea of bringing in neighborhoods together since they have been, even if there's been some distancing, they have been around each other. And certainly when putting kids on a bus, having kids that you've been around or at least somewhat around might be more appealing than not. And then would we consider ever moving kids into that cyber program since we're building it if we went into a closure? So those are probably some of the biggest topics that we discussed in our group.
Okay, great. Thank you. How about elementary 2? Anything else to add to that, Steve?
Yeah, a few things. We had, first off, we just had a really good group, really good ideas. I think the one thing that came out in our group was they need something standard, something for planning. Obviously, knowing sooner than later would be best, but they understand that things are ever changing. Another theme that came out was just the tremendous, and I think this is a community thing that we have here in Westchester that's remarkable, is they really have a lot of support for our teachers. They wanted to know what our teachers thought about certain schedules. They're the ones that are going to be educating their kids. They're the experts. What do they feel? How can we help them? Came out in terms of the schedule. The AB seemed to be talked about the most, although the week on, week off was also mentioned. Just something that would be consistent and standard so they could set their schedules and get daycare going. With the AB model, there was quite a bit of conversation about how difficult it would be for a teacher to be teaching half the kids while trying to Zoom, set up the camera, have the sound quality while wearing a mask. So there was some conversation about just, parents taking the responsibility of doing those days at home, similar to what was going on in the spring with guidance, so that their kids, when they're in the actual room on that every other day, that they're getting some really good quality instruction from the teacher. So they sort of emphasize quality for the times that the kids were in school over just trying to get them some type of instruction daily, and really trying to alleviate just that juggling for the teacher and trying to address the live students as well as the kids that are zooming in and remotely. They came up with some ideas about a team teach approach. I think the month on, that came up. I don't know if it was exactly a month, but it was talked about in terms of like a marking period, bringing half the school in, having half off. So some additional ideas came up. The neighborhood idea came up, as Nora mentioned. And then just some of the questions were the bandwidth concerns, and then, the high level students, the ones with special needs and reading support and wraparound services, how's that going to look? So a lot of pros, a lot of support, just a lot of positive, and they're ready to help out and ready. They just need to, as we all do, we need that decision, and we know that that's going to be coming soon, but good group. Thank you.
Yeah, all the superintendents want the decision from some guidance so we can finish this all up. This is really hard to. It's like working in quicksand. And consistency is again a theme. We got to make sure that we're consistent with our delivery of our program. How about transportation? Transportation group. John, you still there?
I got it, Jim. We share a lot of the same concerns, a lot of what you're talking about in the classroom or in the buildings. We also share the same concerns in transportation. We did talk about that the whole conversation was around still the fact that we would be allowed to have 2 to a seat. If that guidance changes and we need to go down to either a 3-foot or 6-foot distancing, transportation is probably not going to be able to happen. We just do not have enough time in the day. We don't have enough buses. We don't have enough drivers. So we continued on the stance that nothing has changed with the 2 to a seat, which would be 48 kids to a bus. So that conversation moving on. We then talked about the schedules and the various schedules. And from a transportation standpoint, there really isn't much change between the three of them, other than the one where you have the one day in the middle, which is all remote, could have a potential financial savings to the district because we wouldn't have to pay for transportation on that day. So we had some conversation about that. The majority of our time was spent on the neighborhood cohort as opposed to an alpha cohort. A lot of support for the neighborhood cohort. And when I say neighborhood, I mean general geographic areas. A lot of people don't live in a neighborhood, but in the general geographic area. One, those cohorts have probably already been established socially, so the kids are together when they get to the bus stop. Two, it would make it a lot easier for daycare purposes for anyone who might be able to share childcare at home. And third, and one of the big ones was we think that it may be able to help our opt-out program in that if people in the same neighborhood were all going to be able to go to school on the same day, maybe they could opt out and carpool. So we did spend a lot of time on that from a transportation standpoint. That's pretty much the gist of it, Jim. Everything else has been said in the other groups, but a lot of support for the neighborhood cohort as opposed to an alpha cohort.
Okay. And John, we sent those surveys out. How many people so far have said they would help with an opt-out?
As of this morning, Jim, we were at 2,100.
2,100. Okay.
I did not check it any further today. We have a lot of people calling in there's questions that people are asking that we just don't have the answers to. So they can't commit to it. One being, what time can I drop my kids off? What time can I pick my kids up? Things like that. And we don't have the answer to.
Yeah, so 2,100 students. We need about 4,000, I guess, to get it down to.
We need about 4,000 based on where we are. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks, John. All right. Thanks for those summaries from our facilitators, and thanks for all the feedback that we got on that. We'll gather all those notes together. We'll put those up on the website, and some of the questions that were in the chat. Let me just go through some of those from the beginning of the meeting. There was a question in there, if we come back to school and then we shut down, what happens? Well, if we are ordered by the governor to close our schools, we would go back into remote learning. This would be version 2.0. And again, we've made some changes and adjustments to that to have more synchronous learning with the classes and the teachers. But that would be the entire district going into a shutdown. Some question in there was about taking temperature in school. If someone got a temperature in school, what would be the process? We have to set up isolation areas in all of our schools for somebody that is sick for any reason. And then we certainly would contact the parents and send the child home. If we suspect that it is a COVID related or flu related, the contact tracing would be done by the Chester County Department of Health. The superintendents have asked the Chester County Department of Health for letters to send home, much like we get pertussis letters if there's a pertussis outbreak in schools. And then we have not gotten those letters yet, but their guidelines to us is we notify them. They will be the point of contact for contact tracing and notification. Wraparound services was a question for special needs children. I think with wraparound services, we certainly can provide those when the kids are in school. I guess the question we gotta find out about is can we provide those when they're at home on the B day at home? I don't have an answer to that, but our Pupil Services department can check into that. Somebody asked, can you homeschool at any time? You want to pull your kid out and homeschool? And the short answer is yes. In Pennsylvania, parents have the right to homeschool their children. They can teach them pretty much anything they want. In fact, parents have a greater authority to issue a diploma in this state than a superintendent does under the homeschool policy in Pennsylvania. As long as they go through the years and you say that you've taught some things to them, you can do homeschooling anytime. Can we? Someone asked about Westchester University. They're now not going to open in the fall. Can we use some of that space over there? We've actually reached out to the university over the weekend. I spoke with the university president and both of our facilities directors from the each respective institution are getting together this week and look at facilities for a couple of things. Not so much to try to spread out all of our students. I think if we go to a hybrid model, we'll be able to do that. But we're trying to look at some larger spaces, perhaps for some daycare, for some of our daycares to run some daycares. The other institution in our district that we're looking at is Glen Mills School. That is not currently not occupied. They have some large spaces, so we are actually looking at Glen Mills as well. Someone asked, is there a budget for all of this? Because it's costing a lot of money, and that is true. We have a $1.4 million that came from the state of Pennsylvania. That is primarily federal money that was funneled through the COVID-19 emergency fund that has been distributed out to school districts. We also rolled forward about $1.6 million in some additional savings from last year that for unexpected expenses. And then for some of the staffing that we're doing, we're fortunate that we're in the position that we're opening a new elementary school, not this coming fall, but the following fall. So some of the additional staffing, we've been setting aside money for staffing for that school. So as we add that staffing now, and it may be just for 1 year for some additional cyber teachers and cyber coaches, things like that, we can reallocate that staff into that new building for the following year. So there is a limit to the dollars we have, but we are trying to spend them very wisely. In a big system, it is not easy because we're trying to address for 12,000 students and 5,000 non-public school students with some of the services we provide there, with transportation and nurse services too. So we have to coordinate with altogether 160 different schools for trying to coordinate all of this. Someone asked about can we bring K to 6 in and just do 7 to 12 virtual? That actually was one of the very first models we looked at the very beginning of the summer. We went through, and there were rumors going around that we were going to do all this. We actually set up classrooms to see how many kids we could physically fit. We could fit K to 7 in all of our 16 schools where we have 6 feet of social distancing. And then 8 through 12 could be online. The problem with that became it got very expensive because if you have all these classrooms of 12, we almost have to double our staffing, and we just can't afford that. We talked about maybe you put aides in a class to kind of watch the kids. It becomes a very expensive model. I think a remote login becomes a less expensive way to do that. But that one, we did look at that, and there are some big financial roadblocks to that one. And of course, getting all the kids to the right schools with transportation is also something we'd have to work through. Will siblings stay together? Yes, that's what we want to do. That means coordinating elementary, middle, and high school schedules on a hybrid AB. We have been working with, actually, some of our high school teachers, our physics and our math teachers, who are very good with the analytics of all these scheduling pieces. They've run a couple of schedules that do work. So we are working on that. We want to make sure that those all line up. Is there a difference between the cyber school schedule and remote learning? Yes, there is a very big difference. Remote learning 2.0 is if we shut down, we have all our staff available, all of our sports staff available. We have to then go into a remote program. So that is going to be a combination of synchronous and asynchronous. Trying to schedule some of that synchronous, do a little bit more synchronous. We have the staff to do that. They're trying to work with all the kids online. So that is how that would work. A cyber schedule for the cyber programs that we're running, that is more asynchronous. There's lots of flexibility. There is parents that want to just try to get through the COVID-19 until we get a vaccine. This is kind of chaotic. I don't want to be in and out of school. I don't want to deal with the busing and transportation. So the cyber one is more asynchronous, which means that a lot of the assignments are posted up on Schoology, on our learning management system. There'll be assignment boards. There'll be videos by teachers. Now, there will be some synchronous Zoom sessions scheduled to check in, but for the most part, it's much more flexible for the parents that just want to just stay with their kids. In essence, it's your homeschooling program, but we'll provide the digital curriculum and we'll provide a teacher to assess the work that's being done. All the parents have to do, and this is part of the program, you got to be the learning coach to help your children, spend some time with your children to get logged in, to get the assignments, make sure that they're posted. Email the teacher if you have some concerns and questions. So that's how our cyber program works. That is very flexible, and it provides a lot of flexibility for parents who just don't want to deal with all this COVID-19 stuff until everything is over. Michael or Chris or Mary Beth, have I described that pretty well? Anything to add to it?
Yes, I just quickly, I mean, the whole cyber program structure is decidedly different than a traditional brick and mortar. And I just wanted to reiterate something that I think we've tried to make clear in our literature, is that this is not something we just put together. We have, for the last year, we've been, training teachers to teach in a cyber program. And it's not just parents who are kind of riding it out through this COVID situation. I mean, we conceived of this cyber program to compete for our own Westchester students who are attending cyber charter schools right now. So it is built on a model to be competitive with the cyber charter model. And so consequently, it is different. And it's, somebody had asked about the downside. This is not for every kid. It's not for most kids, to be quite honest. But for some kids who need that flexibility, who may be, competing nationally in a sport, wants to do their their instructional program at hours that do not line up with brick and mortar. That's what this is about. And so it's decidedly different than Remote 2.0.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Michael, there was a question about bandwidth. Do we have enough bandwidth for to have all of these computers logging in at one time?
Yeah, we're looking at that right now. We did some basic calculations based on published stats from Zoom. We believe we can. We're running this simulation tomorrow. We'll do some calculations based on those observations. We did double our bandwidth back in the spring, and although I can't, speak for Schoology and, and some of those third-party services, we had 100% uptime. I'm very proud of my networking team for that. We were very flexible. We're looking at some changes to the way we filter students who are off campus to route certain traffic around our network, traffic that goes directly to Zoom, so that those remote kids are not intersecting with our network. We'll filter them on everything else, but certain sites like Schoology, Zoom, will sort of clear in advance and kind of divert that traffic. So we're also upgrading some of our older wireless access points. We've been doing that for the last couple of years. We accelerated that to make sure that all of our classrooms have the newest wireless technology. So there are no guarantees. I'm not sleeping well at night, but we're pretty optimistic that we'll be able to manage this.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. And again, we'll get some test data on that tomorrow as we pilot those classrooms. Another question came up about managing, how we're going to manage Glen Acres and Mercy House. They're the only two schools of our 16 without fully air conditioned. I think a hybrid model kind of helps with that because they're smaller class sizes. We do have air conditioned areas in those buildings, and during some of the warmer weeks, typically at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, we do rotate kids through those air conditioned areas. I think with smaller classes, we'll be able to manage that. The other thing, ironically, is opening windows. Those buildings do have operating opening windows, and the air circulation for what I read of some of the literature is better to have those windows open than in some of the non-window opening schools. We do have a whole facilities plan, HVAC being checked and monitored by our HVAC technicians, changing out filters more regularly. So we are looking at the ventilation plan as part of our plan as well. Somebody asked, can you get rid of the masks if we get the 6 feet of social distancing? According to the state guidelines, the directives from the state is no. You need to be wearing those masks. But when you look at the local and the county guidelines, as long as you can get 6 feet, we are permitted. That is one area that we were trying to get some clarification as superintendents as to what we can and can't do with that. So we're still waiting for a better clarification. And then another last question that was at the beginning of the group was can we use clip-on shields for students, and can we use shields instead of masks? Yes, we can. Shields are permissible. Can we use clip-ons on a hat? We actually had a discussion with our administrative team about that, and yeah, we would waive the hat rule, the no hat rule, if in fact someone wanted to wear a clip-on shield onto a cap to help it stay on. So those were some of the questions that came through. We'll summarize our notes from tonight's meeting. We'll capture questions, and we'll continue to add to our frequently asked questions up on our website. I just want to say thank you so much for everybody for being part of this. Thank our tech people, Chris Cromwell and Mary Beth Clifton and Michael Wagman, for all the work they're doing with getting us in and out of our breakout sessions, monitoring our network, and doing all the troubleshooting to keep things going. We will continue to keep you updated as I get information. I will certainly get it out to our community. We're doing the best we can to keep everybody informed. Maintain rumors to the minimum. And again, looks like from the chat box, everybody's still willing to be on deck to pull the group together if we need to do another meeting. So I appreciate that. And again, thank you so much for all you're doing to help us solve a very difficult and challenging problem. So with that, please have a good night. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll be communicating soon.